basically here we are within our application and basically starting a new view for at least a view administrator. Um, you can go over to your view groups and you can right click and select new view. Now, some of you folks may not be able to do that, but you can always take a view and I can show you this, but you can always take any global view and kind of wipe it out or amend it so that it becomes your own view and then save it as a personal view. Okay. So we'll take a look at that too. But as a view administrator, you can do what I just did, where you can come in. I like just clicking on, if you know where you want it to live, in terms of the view groups on your left frame menu, you could just right click on any one of these and select new view, and it will remember, where you put, right click that. So that always, that view group, when you save the view, it'll automatically be set to that view group. Okay, so let's take a look at our new view. So when you open up a new view, obviously it's completely clear of anything. It's a clean slate, right? So you have nothing within this view, and now we need to add our different components. Now, when I open my new view, as you can see here, that basically it opens up my View Explorer as well. The View Explorer, and if it doesn't, you can always toggle it on and off by using the View Explorer button in the file menu. Okay. And this is being recorded, by the way, so you can always come back to our YouTube channel and review it. Okay. So I like using the View Explorer only because, it's old school. I've kind of, been using it for a while, but you don't have to. You could certainly use the navigational pane over here to add your rows and your columns as needed for your dimensions. You can right click anywhere in the designer and add your measures and edit your rows to get your dimensions in. So there's a lot of redundancies in terms of how you add things in. Up to you in terms of how you would get to it. Like for instance, if I were to edit my rows, it's basically asking me what dimensions do I want to put on my rows. If I were to close that out and come over here and right click on my rows and do an edit, it's the same menu. So again, redundancy, whatever you feel comfortable with, up to you. So when I edit my rows, let's tease this out. This is where I'm going to add in my levels, my different hierarchies. And when you build a view, you need really an analytical purpose. Is it something that I want to push out to my sales folks? Is this inventory related? Supply chain, whatever it is, have a focus. If you already perhaps even map out what the report should look like previously, maybe in Excel, or just have an idea, right, of the different components that you need that you think the users will need. And you can't think of everything, but the primary components, right? For instance, if I were to do a sales this year versus last comparison view, you know, if I were to push that out to my sales reps, I might want to include customer and product related dimensions, right? If I were building out inventory related views, well, those are typically just product related and warehouse related. Inventory doesn't typically have customer related data in it unless you make allocations. So, you have to understand business, right? To understand how to build a good view. So let's tease this out with the sales this year versus last comparison. So here I want to look for my sales measures, or I'm sorry, we're in here looking at a row. So I want either customer, sales rep, territory, regional, those types of things, products, of course. I can type in customer and it will give me all my, you have to spell it right, and give me all my customer related levels. So it's a quick way to just pare down the list of what you're looking for. If I want to start with sold to, I can bring that in, or any other of my customer levels as needed. Same thing for products. If I want to look for anything that has the word products in it, I can come in and wipe out customer, type in product, and here I have all the different product levels that I want to bring in. If I want to bring in family and SKU, then I can bring those in as well. Sales rep. maybe a region or a territory, right? So here are all the dimensions that I've selected for my view. And I click OK, and now they're populated within my View Explorer. And I don't have to, you'll see the supply changes come up on your screen. You don't have to do anything with that yet. That's why I like working within the View Explorer because you can add additional things and components without having to apply the change just yet. Whereas now I can go in and if I want to add anything to my column, that would, that would make this view more of a cross tabular report. So, and we'll play around with that but let's keep it simple for now and keep things just on our rows. And that way you'll have an idea what this will look like in probably a more vanilla form, right? And we can always finagle these levels over to columns as needed. And that's the flexibility of this, right? So you can always play around with it to get your cross tabular report as needed. Well, what's next? Well, I want to add in some data, right? So we have some levels that we've created. So now we want to add in some numerical data. And this would be dollar related data typically if you want to send it out to your reps, dollars, perhaps units, so they can have an idea of revenue and they can also have an idea of volume. So here I'm going to go ahead and add in, right click on my measure items. And again, I can right click anywhere, right? So I can right click. Well, I can't right click on the designer any longer, right? It's because of this menu change, the apply changes. And that's why the View Explorer this is why I like it. I can come in, right click on my measures and still add in additional stuff without committing my changes. So I'm going to select add regular measure item. And now I get a different view menu. I get a view menu that basically is asking me to look for those measures, right? So I want to type in the word sales, and this will allow me to pare down this list to just the sales related measures. And I'm going to add in my sales amount, and also I'm going to control left click on my actual sales units. So I can add them both in together. So I don't have to do it over in sequence. I can do them together. So I have these two measures that I want to add into my view. And then below is my time range unit. This is basically how you want to analyze time. This is your from and your to time periods. So this is what we call time range. So for instance, if I want year to date, and then perhaps I want that in either days or months, the user will always be able to change this as needed. So don't worry about, setting in stone what you think they need right off the chain. They can always come in and rearrange and get flexible with it. So I'm going to go ahead and just choose months. And a couple things I can do here. You've got different time range options. I can either select this specific time range. I can also choose current year instead of actually putting in the actual year itself. And perhaps you would want to do that because you would want to keep this dynamic. So every time the user runs the view, it's year-to-date position. So by doing so, I can then say, well, year to date, we'll start this in January because my fiscal starts in January. It's a calendar fiscal. You might have fiscal periods that you might want to configure up to you in terms of what you think the user is going to need. And then for my 2 year, it's going to be, again, going to be current year. So this stays dynamic. And then my 2 period is either going to be current month. You can also do previous month, depending on what exactly you want to convey. Would you want year to date up to the close previous month, or you just want year to date up to the most current month, right? A lot of folks will do previous month, and that will give them the ability to basically analyze months that are closed, which makes sense as well. So I'm going to click on add, and those are going to add those little measures in. Notice my View Explorer to the right now has those measures within my view. And what I love about this is that then I can go very quickly, select last year, and I can add those in very quickly as well. So now I've got this year and last year ready to go. Now I'm going to click exit instead of OK because if I click OK, they're going to re-add everything, right? So I'm done with this menu. I'm going to exit it. And now I'm going to go ahead and apply my changes. All right. I can rearrange before I do anything, but I'm going to go ahead and just apply my changes and see what I have. And it looks great. I mean, so far so good. Just right off the chain, it looks really nice. If I wanted to make some adjustments, I can very quickly and easily drag some things around and drop them as needed. For instance, if I want my sales dollars next to this year versus last, I can very quickly finagle that column to make that happen. So now I've got this year, last year's sales, this year, last year's sales units, right? Very easy. Here I've got my drill downs. If I want to see my some of my customers and what they're purchasing, I can very quickly just drill now to the product family level, and I've got my data as needed. So pretty easy to select. I'm going down to the product level. If I want to see what products they're purchasing, like obviously you can do that as well. I can drag and drop product instead of looking at product family. I can see all the products. Notice that product family, when I selected it, it also brought in some attributes, the effective date, the height in inches, and of course the long description. These attributes that are available at typically a product and customer related levels. For instance, it's SKU. If I want to add in another attribute, then I can maybe see the current list price perhaps. I can bring that in as well and see what the list price should be for these items. So that's adding in another data point, right, at a level. And it's what we call an attribute. And you can do that on the fly, and you can add those in and obviously save that to your view. So pretty easy right off the chain to get things going, right? To get those primary components in your view. I was able to do this rather quickly. And, again, I can add in some calculations now if I want to. Maybe a variance calculation between these two, or an achievement percentage, a variance percent, whatever it is you want to add in. I can very quickly add in that calculation by selecting, right-clicking on the column that I want to add that calculation in to the right. If I add in the calculated measure, it brings in my calculated menu. It allows me to go in and build that calculation based on the measures that I have within my view. I like to use Stratum viewer functions. This allows you to build these achievement percentages or perhaps a percentage change rather quickly. By clicking on that function, it fills in my syntax for me, and I just tell it what measures I want to select that to make the selection for that percent of change calculation. My format's going to be a percent because that's basically what I'm going to see is a percent or expect that. I can fill this in if I want, maybe have it stand out a bit. You don't have to, but it's kind of cool that you can kind of do this rough, this menu, and I can then type in percent of change here as my in dollars for that. And that's your column header. All right, let's go ahead and click OK and see what this looks like. And there it is. So right there, I've got now my percent of change in dollars, 27%. If I right click that column, I can now sort it as needed. If I want to sort in descending fashion, now I've got my top growing customers based on sales revenue. Right there's my sort visual indicator. I can flip flop that around, and there's my not so top growing, even though they're still growing. It's still not the top growers, as you can see by playing around with that sort. As I move the sort, for instance, maybe I want to sort who's my top revenue customer, and I can move that sort over to my sales dollars column for year to date. And good old Wilder Foods comes in because this is a demo data. Of course, I always know who's on top, right? So they bubble up to the top, and those are my top accounts based on sales revenue year to date. Right? So those are things that you can do to create a view very quickly. And as you can see, I was able to add in that calculation rather quickly as well. If I go to into my display options, as you can see, you can kind of make some even kind of fine tune the view even further by going in there. I can actually, use paging. Notice this view is showing all my rows anyway. So those are all typically on by default. Where paging, I can lock my rows and columns in case I want to, scroll through hundreds, if not thousands of rows of data. I can override my page size if I want to. Maybe I want the grid or maybe I don't, and I can get rid of that, and I can play around with some totals. If I look at the grid format, I can play around with like alternate row coloring. Maybe I want to change that from what the default was and what it gave me. The user can kind of drive what that's going to look like based on the different rows. The total row can be something, maybe have that stand out a little bit more by making that gray. Fonts and sizing, all of that can be changed so that the data captions and their values, can all be kind of resized as needed. If you want to use different fonts, you can change that too. So a lot of display options in terms of what you want this view to look and feel like, and then you can make those changes as needed. I think I just lost everything. So that's a good example of saving your view early and often. And I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but let's go ahead and take a look at a view that is already built. So if I open up a view, click on a view, and say run one in place that's global. So here's a view that's already been built. We can see all the different components already added. I've got some different calculations, and this is basically a comparative sales view as well, with different time range elements in it as well. So, and again, you can do a save as at any time frame. So this is something we should have done prior, where we can go ahead and go into that save as and then save it away as my personal view. You can also save it as a global view if you're a view administrator. So it depends on your role and how much authority has been granted to you. But everyone can save off a personal view and save that away as their own personal report so that they can run it later as needed. So, like I said, if you wanted to wipe everything out, I can come in here and select everything on my rows, everything on my columns, and everything on my measures, and I can completely whack everything out of here, right? So if I wanted to, as a regular user, typically I can come in and pick a view that maybe has something. Maybe I want to keep my rows. Maybe I want to just get rid of and make this a year-to-date. Um, I'll keep everything and except for my last three columns, which is a year-to-date scenario. So by clicking on this X up here, it'll delete anything that you have selected here. So if I want to get rid of those items and then go ahead and apply that change. Now, basically, I just got rid of those columns in one fell swoop and just kept the columns that I wanted to keep. Kind of cool. And again, that's why I like the View Explorer. It allows you to do things like that. Otherwise, I'd be over here in the data grid and right-clicking things and deleting them and doing things over and over again. It's kind of tedious. So the View Explorer really kind of helps you get around that. So, and I won't save that. So I'll just run this view again. And again, as you can see, by not saving it away, obviously the global view stays intact. This thing is protected. Only, again, view administrators would be able to save a global view. So, and that's how you can finagle a view that is already built, and you can just get rid of things that you don't want, get rid of the levels that you don't need, add levels back in, add additional columns back in as needed, and then save that as your personal view by using the Save As button. You can save as at any point in time. And once you save as, if you make a change or you do some things, you can continue to just click on the save button if you want to. We don't have an autosave feature. So again, the concept of save early and often is definitely recommended. Okay. Filtering, there might be some concepts where you might want to filter things on maybe a specific customer. So by going into my right clicking on that level of customer, um, allows me to pursue a filter here as well. So if I select filter edit, I can then go in and select certain customers that I want to. For instance, if I want to just concentrate on, and I can move that and look at my filter list over here. Maybe I just want something for Wilder Foods, right? So if I'm going to select those two Wilder Foods account and click OK, and now my filter has been selected. And I can make this view basically, and I can drill on both of those accounts by clicking on the header, and I can see how Wilder Foods for both Eastern and Western Division, what their numbers look like in one report, just by clicking on that column header. So that's drilling on the filtered items. Certainly I can just filter on one particular customer as well, right? Notice how the filter menu icon is illuminated up here on the top. This provides you just yet another way to manage your filters. So if you notice that if I open that menu, it shows me that I've already got that filter there on the Sol 2 level, right? And that's already been defined. We've already did that. And what's cool about this is that I can actually do an exclude feature here. Maybe if I want to exclude and just see the customers other than Wilder Foods, I can click OK and it will perform that task for me. So you have an include option and you have an exclude option. And that's been a pretty powerful feature for our customers. So again, by managing my filters in the filter menu option there, it allows me to manage my features, my filters. If I want to delete that filter, I can go ahead and clear that out if I wanted to. I can also add in additional filters for the other levels within my view as well. So certainly you can do that. If I want to go ahead and wipe this filter out and click OK, and I'm back to square one with all my rows. And then finally, how do we drill this view to another view? Perhaps give the user another glimpse of the data. A good example of that would be, for instance, for Wilder Foods, for any one of these accounts. It'd be nice to see this data trended out along for my months. Given that I'm in my view that does time range, it's, I would have to build out columns for each one of my months, and that could get a little tedious. And God forbid if I, wanted to look at it by week, it would be even more tedious. So why don't I just link the user to another view that already has time as a dimension? It'll pass the appropriate filters as needed to that view automatically. Sounds too good to be true, but it is actually something that works quite nicely. So for instance, if I look at this particular column for my year-to-date sales, if I want to see that 43 million and how that spreads out throughout that year on for January through September, I can, as a user, could just click in on that particular 43.9 million, and then I can see that for January was 3.2, February was 4.1, and so on and so forth. And I can even see last year or anything else that you might want to include in that view that you want to send the user to. So I just drilled and it passed over the Wilder Food filter for me automatically. So if I want to come back here and look at Wilder Foods Western or any one of these Midwest providers, it really doesn't matter. Any one of these that I click on, for instance, this 25 million for Harrington's, I can click on that and I can see how that 25 million is spread out now throughout my months. And with time being a hierarchy, I can then drill from January to my weeks and see how that compares, and then on to my days. If you store your data daily, you can see how that spreads out. I know it looks kind of weird, but it's my demo data, so don't make fun of it. In real life, that'll look much more uniform, and as you can see at the monthly level, it looks fine. But some of the magic we play when we have demonstrative data or demonstrable data. Anyway, that's a really, really great feature, and it's by different by the column or basically by the measure. So if I right click and go to properties, I can see how that is set up. It's basically drill down view. Do I want to use it? You would toggle that on, and then you would click on the button there, and you would select the view that you want to drill to. In this case, it's already been selected to that year-to-date trended sales. This one over here is my month-to-date column, and I'm pointing the user to a different view. And for instance, this one is going to show them what's open because that's my current month sales. So if I want to meet some of these year-to-date, my month, from last year's numbers, then I can see where we're down. For instance, here for Midwest providers, we're not really doing well. So for Midwest, I can click on that 527, and then I can go in and see what their open orders are for those accounts for Midwest. So now I have at least an idea of what's coming in the hopper for my current next week and anything past due for that matter that we need to get shipped out, right, and invoiced. So this at least gives me the user or the sales rep an idea of not only what their current month sales is, but what we still have yet to ship. Especially for current week and next week, I would get on production and get on my production guys and my plant managers and say, "What's up? Let's get these orders out." So that's the power of the being able to drill from, from a measure to another view. That's what we call drill to view. There's different ways you can configure that, but this is a great example of how you can take the user from a time range view to a periodic view so that they can see the data trended, or you can take the user from a current month sales to an open order view so they can see what's in the hopper so they can push product out to get their number for the month, right? So those are the different things that you can kind of accomplish with that as well. All right. So again, view mastery. Those are the things that I wanted to kind of go over today on how you could build a view from scratch, the different components, the fundamentals of that, and sorting, filtering, all the different common features that we see, adding in a different a calculation, and then saving them away as my personal view.